Jim Collins conducted a 5-year study to explore what set some companies apart way above the rest. What made some companies great while others were just average or poor. And as he gathered data, he found 11 companies whose stock returns had skyrocketed relative to the other companies in their industry who had similar resources. And these 11 companies maintained this level of performance for at least 15 years. And as he studied the differences between those companies and the others who had the same level of resources but weren't achieving the same level of performance, he found various factors that contributed to the differences, but he found one that truly stuck out a little bit more than the rest. And that was that the leaders of the average or poor companies focused much more on proving themselves, proving their abilities, than on improving themselves and their companies. So their main focus was, how do I look in the eyes of others? So these leaders ignored their mistakes and their shortcomings because those mistakes and shortcomings hindered their ego, right? So they ignored them. They weren't open to advice or feedback. Many of them surrounded themselves with people who they saw as less intelligent or less talented than them in various ways so that they could feel a high sense of self-esteem as compared to those that they surrounded themselves with. And then on the other hand, the leaders of the great companies, the ones that really stuck out and thrived, were the opposite of that. They valued improvement over proving themselves. So they put all of their energy into increasing their knowledge and abilities and improving their strategies and improving their business. And they valued that so much more than what their image was, what people thought of them. And Alan Wurtzel was identified as a really amazing example of one of those leaders. He was the CEO of Circuit City, and he constantly was asking questions of his board members and his executive team. In these meetings, he was never kind of preaching to them. He was never trying to demonstrate his knowledge and skills and abilities and wisdom. Instead, he was always seeking to learn. So he surrounded himself by teams of people who were highly knowledgeable and highly skilled. And he asked questions and follow-up questions, and he dug and dug so that he could learn. And what was so amazing about his approach was that over a 15-year span, it took the company from near bankruptcy to yielding the highest total return to stockholders of any firm on the New York Stock Exchange. So, I mean, this is huge. This was one of the highest performing companies of the time. Truly amazing. And what made that company stand out? Well, a huge factor was this improving mindset over the proving myself mindset. If we want to be high performers, we have to focus so much more on improving ourselves than proving our abilities and our knowledge and our skills. We need to focus less on getting people to think highly of us and instead embrace the vulnerability that inevitably comes in the process of improvement. Because in order to improve, we have to be humble. We have to allow others to see the weakness that is in us. If we're not willing to see the weakness in ourselves or to let others see the weakness in us, we can't learn and we can't improve. So it truly is impossible to put all of our energy into looking awesome and at the same time grow and improve and fulfill the highest levels of our potential. And this is challenging for sure. It's not easy. It's difficult to be humble and to let others see our weakness. So it's actually very common to fall into the proving mindset instead of the improving mindset, even if you're not cocky, you don't have a big ego. It's still common to fall into that. For example, when I played water polo in high school, there were so many times when I was so focused on how my teammates would perceive me, and I was so worried about them seeing me as a weak player or a bad player, that when we were in our drills, maybe shooting drills, for example, I would take shots that I was comfortable with and used to, instead of taking the risk to learn a new shot. Because to me, it was too risky. I didn't want to try a new shot and look silly doing it. So instead, I just took a shot that I was already pretty comfortable with and just did that over and over and over again, because what I cared about was my teammates seeing me score a goal. And what I wasn't focusing on was trying new things and making mistakes in that process so that I could get better. And because of that, my growth in the sport was greatly inhibited. My game truly suffered because of it. And so many of us do that in whatever it is that we're pursuing. We often become stagnant because of this proving mindset. These mindsets truly are contradictory to one another. The more that we have the proving mindset, the less that we can have the improvement focus. And the other way around, the more that we have that improvement focus, the less that we worry about what others are thinking of us and how we seem to others, because we're just focusing on enjoying the process of improvement. So the proving mindset has various aspects to it. When people are in the proving mindset, they're trying to prove their knowledge and skills instead of improving their knowledge and skills. They avoid feedback. They put others down to boost their own self-esteem. They avoid challenges because challenges may make them look weak. They see the successes of others as a threat to their own self-worth. They respond to shortcomings either with frustration and discouragement or with excuses and blame. They try to separate themselves from their mistakes, or they beat themselves up horribly for their mistakes because it's making them look bad. And then in the improving mindset, people ask questions. They seek feedback actively. They acknowledge and learn from their mistakes. They encourage, strengthen, and uplift their teammates. They don't need to put others down in order to feel good about themselves. They celebrate the successes of others and they seek to learn from them. They seek challenges and see them as opportunities for growth. So they strive to push themselves to levels that they haven't reached before because they're not worried about looking silly when they fall down in the process. So they seek those challenges and they respond to shortcomings with curiosity instead of with frustration and discouragement, and they move forward toward improvement instead of blaming others or making excuses. And this is an individual skill. It's something that each and every one of us can train ourselves to get into. We can train ourselves to be in the improving mindset instead of the proving mindset. But this is also a group skill. Culture is very powerful. So it's so important that we develop cultures that truly value and promote the improvement mindset instead of the mindset of proving your worth. Because even the most growth-oriented people, if they are within a system, within a group, within a team, within an organization that values proving yourself over improving yourself, then even the most growth-oriented people can get lost in the proving mindset and their improvement can be greatly hindered. So we have to cultivate cultures that value improvement over your current level of performance and talent right now. For example, this company called Enron, they went bankrupt in 2001. And as people were studying what led to their fall, they realized that basically the biggest factor was that Enron created a culture in which talent was praised and rewarded, and shortcomings and mistakes were shamed and punished. So this basically created this dynamic where everyone within the company was striving all the time to appear talented. And that was where their focus was. And because they were always striving to appear talented and to appear high performing, guess what they weren't focusing on? They weren't focusing on improving. And how could they? Because if you're always focusing on how you seem to the people around you, you can't face your mistakes. You can't be honest about your mistakes because that makes you look bad. And you can't then strive for improvement because you're not even looking at your mistakes in the first place. And if other people see you striving to improve, that suggests that you're at some sort of level of weakness because you need improvement. So there were these powerful dynamics that caused the company to fail to improve because everyone was just striving to prove themselves. On the other hand, Alan Wurtzel with Circuit City developed a caring culture, one where employees were safe to make honest mistakes without facing retribution, without being punished or looked down upon. And this was coupled with a culture that highly valued learning and improvement. And so these combined together to create a safe space where the natural process of improvement could flourish. And that was why the company did so well for such a long time. It's all about having a culture of the process of improvement. And these different cultures were actually tested in an experiment by Robert Wood and Albert Bandura. So I'd love to share this study with you guys as well. It's fascinating. So in this study, business school graduate students had to run a simulated furniture company, and they were supposed to reach certain very high levels of production. And there were two different groups. The first group was told that the task was a test, that they were testing their business management abilities. And the second group was told that the task was basically a learning opportunity, that management skills could be learned and developed, and this task was designed to help these students develop and learn those skills. And as the task began, every student made mistakes, especially in the beginning. It was kind of something new. They had never had that experience before. So mistakes were inevitably made. But what's so fascinating is that the first group, the one who saw the task as a test of their abilities, they didn't learn from their mistakes because they were responding to their mistakes with frustration and discouragement and avoidance and with excuses. They couldn't face their mistakes because their mistakes were basically saying to them that these people who are testing me see me as a bad leader. So it was just bringing them down or leading them to just make excuses and avoid their mistakes. So there was no learning, there was no progress. In the other group, the group that saw the task as an opportunity to develop skills and learn, they did learn from their mistakes. They acknowledged and analyzed their mistakes, and they used feedback to improve. And they ended up significantly more productive than the other group because they were going through this natural process of growth, whereas the other group wasn't. Their growth was completely stopped and hindered because of the proving mindset instead of the improving mindset. So, what does this tell us? Well, it tells us that cultures that emphasize current abilities over growth keep people from accessing their full potential. And then on the other hand, cultures that emphasize growth and learning are the ones that lead to success. So how do leaders and coworkers and teammates promote cultures that help the process of improvement roll forth? Well, here are 3 tips that I'll give you. One is to seek advice, help, and feedback, each individual. So you going into your workplace or however you lead or your sport, whatever it is, Be an example of one who seeks advice and seeks help and seeks feedback. As you do that, what that says to others is that we are safe here to engage in that process. We are safe here to seek help. Tip number 2 is own up to your mistakes and share your plans for personal improvement. This shows a level of humility and again expresses that it's okay to be doing that here, and it gives other people courage to do the same thing. We have to be humble. That helps others to feel safe going through the process of improvement. And then tip number 3 is to praise and reward people for doing those same things, for seeking help and feedback, and for asking for advice, and for acknowledging their mistakes, for making plans for improvement, and then following through on those plans. It's so awesome and great to praise people for doing what they're doing well, for achieving a certain level of performance. And it's so critical that the vast majority of the praise and the feedback is about the process of improvement. So just say, hey, great job for asking questions. I know that takes courage. Thank you so much for doing it. Or great job for working on that skill that I know you've been working on. I'm so proud of you. As you praise in that way, it helps people to really loosen up, to let themselves be human. We are human. We have to let ourselves be human, and then to go through the process of growth, which ultimately leads us to our highest potential and our highest levels of success. I will leave you with this quote from Kobe Bryant, who was describing his approach to improvement. He said, "I wasn't scared of missing or looking bad or being embarrassed. That's because I always kept the end result, the long game, in my mind. I always focused on the fact that I had to try something to get it. And once I got it, I'd have another tool in my arsenal. If the price was a lot of work and a few missed shots, I was okay with that." So let's follow the examples of Kobe Bryant and of Alan Wurtzel by engaging fully in the process of improvement and being humble enough and being vulnerable enough and being bold enough to let people see us fall and slip up and fail in the process. And let's create environments where people can feel safe to go through that growth process. As we do that, we will bring ourselves and our teams and those around us to our highest levels of success. Thank you all so much for listening today. I truly appreciate it. Please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube so that you can keep up to date on my content. Please make sure to share this podcast with 3 friends so that they can benefit from it too. And if you're willing, I would love it if you would leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Those are extremely helpful. Thank you so much, and let's go be high performing today.